All right, y'all. Let's fucking do this shit. We had a great week last week. Well, I did. I was up 60 units or so. Um, this card, it's about the same. I'm looking at a lot of favorites winning this week yet again. Um, at least that's my prediction. It's a bit more, I don't know, boring and a little bit. It's honestly a little bit harder to predict than the last week. But let's go ahead and go through it. Bear with my graphics. I kind of just like I didn't have much time today. Today's my day off, so I kind of just strung some of these graphics together. I took most of my graphics from the UFC website, but I kind of if they didn't have pictures of the guys, I kind of just like made my own ones like real quick. So bear with me. It's not the graphics that make a huge difference; it's the content. Um, but I'm gonna strive to aim a little better each week and get a little bit better graphics each week and improve the quality of everything. So first off, we have Kevin Jousset versus Kiefer Crosby. Um, this fight is going to be pretty interesting. It's going to go one of two ways. So Kevin Jousset, he's tall, lanky. He's part of the kickboxing, the city kickboxing with Adesanya, Shane Young, Blood Diamond, and Carlos Ulberg. He's coming in with a record of 8-2, and he is proclaimed the worst kickboxer from that club on this card, which doesn't really mean much because everybody else is pretty decent. Like they're all pretty experienced UFC fighters. Um, his judo is great. He's just a real big guy. I mean, you can see the height difference there already. 6'2" versus 5'11". He kind of wears on you, big lumbering dude. He wrestles pretty well. He gets a lot of takedowns, but he struggles with a little bit of control time. Uh, his last three fights, he's 3-0, and only two of those opponents were like relatively quality wins. Which one of them was actually 40 years old, but he looked pretty juiced up and pretty ready to go. He got wrestled around a lot in that fight, but he went 5 rounds with him. Pretty consistent cardio throughout that fight. Looked really good to me for the most part. My only critiques of him are that he's like relatively slow and not very high volume. In his losses, he always gets outstruck, and he loses by decision. And then on the other hand, we have Kiefer Crosby. He's a little bit shorter. He's kind of like a powerhouse dog. He comes out guns blazing. Most of his wins are first round knockouts, but he has fought a lot of older guys as well. I mean, it seems like a lot of these guys get padded records fighting these older men, and but he did impress me with his power. His cardio, not so much. So his cardio, he tends to gas out in the first few minutes of the first round, and that does not bode well for him against people of high quality. So I see this fight going one of two ways. Kiefer Crosby gets the knockout very quickly in the first round because Kevin does not adapt to that pace, and he ends up getting caught. He's not very good up close. In those like kind of phone box exchanges, and I think Kiefer could probably catch him there. But Kevin, he's got a big chin. Like I think he'll be able to withstand the majority of what Kiefer throws at him in the first round, and I think Kevin is going to implement his wrestling in round 2 and 3, and I think he's just going to out cardio him. Um, he could lay on top of Kiefer and end up getting a TKO due to exhaustion. That's one of my predictions, or he goes to win by decision. So my bets are kind of all over the place with a lot of leverage here. So I have a quarter unit on Kiefer Crosby round one at plus 750, and then half a unit Kevin Jousset on wins by decision or technical decision at plus 275, and then I have half a unit Kevin Jousset inside the distance at plus 150, and then I have 1.5 units at fight does not go the distance. So yeah, I went back and forth. Obviously, you can see in the variety of the bets, but honestly, I came to the conclusion that this fight probably does not go the distance, and I thought that um, the best value was probably in there, just because Crosby's cardio is not very good. Giuseppe's not super dangerous with his striking. But I think he could manage to tire Kiefer out. Kiefer will probably chase that first round finish and then gas out, and Jusei will probably finish him in rounds 2 or 3. I have medium confidence in all these bets. If any one of these bets hit, you probably break even or even better. Um, yeah. So moving on, the next fight. This one is definitely directly from the UFC website. A lot of them are. Yeah, today's my day off. I didn't really have enough time to like piece together some crazy graphics. I got to hang out with my daughter later today. Well, I want to hang out with my daughter later today. So yeah, I just want to get this one done. So Shane Young, he's 13-7 in his MMA career, and he's 30 years old. He's lost his last 3 fights in the UFC. His only notable wins are coming from Rolando Dye, who is 14-13 and 1-3 in the UFC, and then we Austin Arnett, who is 18-7 and also 1-3 in the UFC. Both of those wins happened over 4 years ago, so Shane hasn't really fought. Um, he hasn't won recently, like whatsoever. But yeah, Shane Young has a fighting style where he gives constant pressure, tries to back the opponents up and tire them out and overwhelm them and wear them down. Young essentially only throws straight punches. He stays tight and pretty technical. At times, he's a bit restless and charges with his hands down. Young does not score many takedowns with an average of uh, less than one every 15 minutes. And his takedown accuracy, which is 18%, is horrific. On the other hand, his takedown defense is 65%, which is not bad. He's a pure volume type of guy. The one knockout he had in the UFC was with an elbow, and the other guy was just exhausted. I mean, he just looked tired, and he hit him with that elbow, and he kind of just gave up. I mean, he didn't even really knock him out, but he just like laid there on the ground, kind of breathing heavy. Um, yeah, so he's got a good cardio on him, that's for sure. And then on the other hand, Gabriel Miranda is 16-6 overall. He's 33 years old. Gabriel is kind of a tough cookie to crack. He has only lost 2 MMA fights in the last 7 years, and those names are Benoit Saint Denis and Ahmed Magomedov. Both of those guys are really great. Benoit should be in the top 5 in the division in the world. And the loss to Miranda, or sorry, the loss to Benoit, Miranda looked pretty good. I mean, for what it was, he showed some impressive takedowns and then some decent striking, but he tired out a little bit too quick and then got put away by Benoit. Um, Shane Young, if he was fighting Benoit, he would have got dismantled like as well. So it's kind of hard to gauge how good Gabriel Miranda really is. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit hard to figure out who's definitely going to win this fight. And then judging by his other loss to Magomedov, he's 10-1 in MMA. So I mean, it's not a horrible loss to have. It's just it's hard to predict because Gabriel Miranda really hasn't fought anybody that great, and the guys that he did fight were pretty awesome. So it's just hard to have a good reference point on how good Gabriel Miranda actually is. But overall, with my pick, I'm gonna have to go with the experience here. So Shane Young, he's had a lot of UFC fights. He's actually younger by 3 years than Gabriel Miranda. I think he's just gonna have much more volume, and Gabriel Miranda is kind of a one-trick pony. He goes for submissions, but he does tend to gas out. So I think Shane Young withstands his initial burst and avoids the submissions and can get this win done in Australia. My bets are 1 unit for Shane Young by decision. So the decision bet is plus 200. I think that's the most probable outcome. Just due to his volume, he's not really a type of guy to put people away. So I think that's the best bet. 200, like plus 200, like that's pretty good odds for me. So yeah, and then one more thing to look for when the striking prop bets come out on Friday tomorrow. I would look at Shane Young's striking totals and probably bet the over on it. I guess it just depends what it is, but if it's like 60 or like less, I would definitely hammer that bet because I think this fight's probably going to go the distance, unless Gabriel Miranda racks up some like crazy sub. Okay, moving on, we got Blood Diamond and Charles Radke. So Blood Diamond is also part of that kickboxing group, as I stated earlier. I think he could probably out kickbox 95% of the people in the division, but he's pretty one dimensional. Diamond fared well against Kosi. for the most part in his most recent fight. His grappling didn't look at all terrible, but it was hard for Kosi to get him down like off of shots. But when he locked up like body locks and throws, he could take him down pretty easily. Same thing happened with Jeremiah Wells in the previous fight. Wells did a great job mixing up the ground pound and submissions, and Diamond eventually succumbed to a kind of a mediocre choke. It wasn't really that deep, but Wells just showed off his strength and ended up choking him unconscious, even though he wasn't even around the neck. So yeah, Blood Diamond not very impressive in his two UFC showings, but overall he's pretty dangerous with his kickboxing. Radke is 7-3, and he's sitting at 33 years old. Oh yeah, one other thing. So yeah, Blood Diamonds is 35, so he's slightly older. And then yeah, so we got Radke sitting at 33 on a four fight win streak, all of which were Cage Fury championships. I'd say he's above average MMA fighter who definitely deserves a shot at the UFC. He's a BJJ specialist. Sorry, my dog's growling in the background. He has a he has beautiful scrambles on the mat. He can wrestle for all 3 rounds, and he's aggressive and likes to pressure his opponents into the cage and close off the distance, which will be advantageous against someone like Blood Diamond. In his last loss, he was easily winning and got hit with a crazy body shot to the liver with 5 seconds left in the second round, which shut him off completely. This fight's pretty easy to break down. If Radke decides to stand and bang with him, he's screwed. But he seems to be a smart guy and incorporates wrestling as soon as he can. I see Radke scoring some body lock takedowns and wearing on Diamond. I think Radke wins this fight pretty sure-handedly and probably submits Diamond. Diamond just gives up his back too much, and against a BJJ black belt, that's a no-go for me. Ultimately, Blood Diamond is getting older at 35, and it's hard to see him making some game-changing improvements this late in life. In my opinion, if you haven't developed wrestling early on, it's nearly impossible to get on the same level as the guys who have been doing it their whole life. So my main bet for this fight is 1.5 units at minus 275 for a fight does not go the distance. Um, I think Radke submits him, but if if Blood Diamond does somehow thwart his wrestling, Blood Diamond's definitely there for the KO. Radke was TKO'd by a liver shot. I think I already had said that, but yeah, he was TKO'd by a liver shot, and I think Blood Diamond could definitely end up getting some solid strikes on him. So I think fight doesn't go the distance is the safest bet there. I know it's minus 275, so it's not like way too crazy, but I'm some of the bets I'm just gonna go for a little bit more yeah, reserved and just try to rack up some units that way. Um and one more bet, if the props come out and it's like a 1.5 takedown line for Radke, definitely take that. And most takedowns landed for Radke would be free money as well. It's probably going to be like insane odds if they even do give odds. But yeah, definitely that would be a bet to take if you want to make some negligible money. But yeah, get a really safe bet in there. All right. Next, we've got Nasrat Hakparast and Landon Quinone. So I don't really want to break this fight down if I'm being honest. It shouldn't be sanctioned. These guys are it's just these guys aren't even really like close in skill level. Nasrat's pretty close to his prime here. He's 28 and has some excellent UFC experience. He doesn't have any crazy quality wins in the UFC, but he has had 10 UFC fights and he's won 6 of them. Landon didn't really show much in the Ultimate Fighter at all. I mean, he lost in less than a minute, um, and he hasn't even fought since Tough. I mean, he did a grappling match, which is kind of like a red flag for me because why are you switching from MMA to grappling? It doesn't make much sense. He's obviously probably not that confident in his MMA ability if he's not fighting again. But he took this fight on relatively short notice, so let's see how he does. But yeah, the irony is kind of laughable because the whole Tough season was about vets going up against rookies, and he couldn't even beat a relatively washed up vet. So, um, I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me. Nasrat isn't all that impressive, but at least he's actively fighting on a UFC contract, unlike Jason Knight, who just destroyed Landon. There's a reason why Jason Knight got booted from the UFC. He just wasn't as competitive anymore. I loved Jason Knight, but yeah, he just really hasn't looked good. I mean, yeah, there's a reason why he's not fighting anymore. Anyway, Nasrat should win pretty quickly. I'll throw 1 unit on the under 1.5 at plus 200 for the hell of it, and maybe another unit on fight does not go the distance at minus 110. I think that's a great bet. But yeah, those are my two bets for this card. or this fight. Huck Pross is like at a minus 450 or something, which is just a little too steep for me. He could be a good parlay piece, but um, yeah, I like those two bets the best. Props are probably going to be the way to go on this card. Next, we've got Jamie Malarkey versus John McDessie. So Jamie Malarkey is 16-6, and he's 29 years old. He's coming off a knockout loss where he was a minus 700 favorite against a UFC newcomer. He was winning the fight until he got KO'd. He's a pretty big guy for the weight class at 6 foot tall. Overall, I think Malarkey's a decent fighter, and McDessie would have lit him up in his prime. But McDessie has looked slow and small in his previous fights as he gets older, and his chin looked questionable as well. He probably should have retired after the loss to Nasrat because it's just kind of sad seeing these guys get beat up unnecessarily. You can probably see where I'm going with this. Malarkey has a 9-year advantage on McDessie. He's bigger. He's fighting at home. He's just experienced enough to have a good game plan against McDessie. McDessie constantly moves forward and lands leg kicks. He's definitely a volume type of guy now that he's older. He hasn't had a KO victory since 2015. I think this is a really bad matchup for McDessie because Malarkey won't sit there and pitter patter on the feet. He wants to engage. He wants to wrestle and throw bombs. Most of McDessie's wins are against guys who are passive. Actually, McDessie's only win in the last 4 years was against a young Ignacio Bahamondes, and that fight was a split decision. I think Malarkey wins by decision or KO, and it probably won't be close. Malarkey is one of my most confident picks on this shitty card. I like Malarkey as a parlay piece, and I put half a unit on Malarkey second round KO at plus 900, and I put a quarter unit on Malarkey third round KO at plus 1200. Those odds are just like too good for me to like ignore, and I know McDessie hasn't gotten knocked out like, but it's a year removed from his last fight. His chin looked bad. I mean, he got dropped last fight, and I think Malarkey has some serious power. So there's a high percentage chance that he does get knocked out here. Unfortunately, I like John McDessie, but yeah, he's just a little too old, man. All right, next up we got Jack Jenkins versus Chepe Mariscal. So this fight should be really good. Both average lots of takedowns and have some striking power. I'm not confident at all about this fight on either side. Statistically, they're pretty much even everywhere, where the slight grappling advantage is to Chepe and slight striking advantage from Jenkins. And I say slight striking advantage for Jenkins because he gets hit less, but Chepe actually lands more strikes. Um, Jenkins lands more leg kicks. Everyone knows that stat. Nothing groundbreaking there. Um, I think Chepe is the best underdog on the card to bet. I feel like there's got to be one underdog that wins, and I'm pretty much on all favorites yet again. And I think the line should definitely be closer here. I'm not touching it personally, but I think the fight likely goes to decision, and the crowd is definitely in Jack Jenkins' favor, so it might have influence on the judges. So, yeah, I'm not touching it. I mean, if I had to guess, goes to decision, and Jack Jenkins probably wins the decision. Yeah, moving on, we got Carlos Ulberg and Dewan Jung. So Carlos Ulberg is 91 and 32 years old and is currently on a tear. He's had 3 impressive first round knockouts in a row, and he's a talented striker with a background in kickboxing. His fighting style is not particularly aggressive. He normally stays out of range, throws kicks, and waits for his opponent to make a mistake. When fighters overthrow their punches, he stuns them with a jab and follows up with a hook, which is normally lethal. His only loss coming from Kennedy Nzechukwu. I can't pronounce that fucking name. Anyway, he had him hurt like bad multiple times, in the first round. Ulberg did, but he couldn't manage to get the finish. Ulberg emptied the tank in that fight and lost due to sheer determination from Nzechukwu. Kennedy, I should just call him Kennedy. Most fighters would have gone down from the punches Ulberg landed, but Kennedy had a better chin and paced himself in the fight, and that's the only reason why he won. I don't know if Ulberg was like sick or like what was going on with his cardio, but his next fight against Charant, his cardio seemed to hold up all 3 rounds. Yeah, so I mean, Ulberg's weaknesses I tend to lean to like his cardio is not super great. As I alluded to in that fight previously, his guard is sometimes pretty low. I mean, he's a kickboxer, so I don't know what it is, but these guys like to keep their guard low, especially when closing the distance. Like kickboxers seem to be most vulnerable when they're up close because, yeah, their guard just isn't there. Like I mean, they'll throw up their guard like last second, but they don't when they're in like going in close, they don't keep their hands over their face. Like, I mean, they'll be like this, like last second, but that's not good enough. Like, if there's a quick hook coming in, like you could get knocked out. I'm not saying he's like, I don't know. It's just one of his flaws that I've seen. And it does make me lose confidence in Olberg. So Young is 15-4 in his MMA career, and he's 29 years old, so he's slightly younger. Young is on a two-fight losing skid. Um, Young most is it Jung or Young? I don't whatever. Jung most recently lost to Devin Clark this year and Dustin Jacoby last year. His fight with Clark was stopped kind of bad, like at a bad time in my opinion. I don't think he was truly out, but I mean he did get dropped pretty badly. Um, yeah, another interesting tidbit is Jung did beat Kennedy and Zekchuwu. Chukwu. It's in Chukwu. What the fuck am I talking about? But yeah, he did beat him. So it's kind of funny, like if you think about it, like I don't know, Ulberg couldn't beat him, but Jung did. So yeah, it does. It puts like a little bit of doubt in Ulberg, I guess, and I guess that's why the line's a little bit closer than where it really should be. So I don't know. I mean, Oldberg, I'm pretty confident in, but overall, uh, I'm not really too super confident about him as much as everybody else is. Um, I do think that he could be used in a parlay piece, but yeah, I haven't put him in that many parlays just because I mean his cardio, his guard. It just doesn't against Jung. I could see him pulling off the upset here for some reason. So I'm not super confident. Ulberg is my pick, but yeah, I don't think the odds are that great. Um, I think so. I put one unit on Carlos Ulberg to win inside the distance at 140 because that's much better odds, like than the minus like 300 favorite he is. So I mean, minus 140. Pretty much the only way I could see Ulberg winning is through a knockout. I don't see them going three full rounds. The odds per fight doesn't go to decision is minus 325, and Ulberg's the minus 280 favorite. So both of those odds are in Ulberg's favor to win inside the distance. So I might as well just cut to the chase and and bet on Ulberg to win inside the distance for a little bit better of a line. So moving on, we got Tyson Pedro and Anton Turkalj. So a lot of people are on Anton this week, and I mean I don't really see it. Like I think the line's about probably accurate. Honestly I'd put Pedro a little ahead. So I mean, Turkalj is young. He's up and coming, but he really hasn't shown me much other than the fight with Vitor Petrino. He landed essentially no strikes. People say he's a great striker, but he's yet to show it in the UFC against any high level opponents. He primarily wrestles. He got a lot of takedowns against Vitor Petrino, but he did jack all with it. I mean, he got a lot of takedowns. He didn't hold him down. He didn't land any ground and pound. Um, yeah, I mean, he had Petrino's back like at least three times and could have easily punched him a few times, kept good position and sunk in a choke, or at least like scored some points, but he didn't. Then when he put his hooks in, he would get too high and get reversed and give up his position. Then Petrino would take his back. Overall, it was horrible wrestling, boring to watch. Then before that, he got smoked by Almeida, which is fair. He shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have been up against him. I mean, it was just a complete mismatch. But before that, in the Contender Series, he did the exact same thing for another win. He wrestled for 15 minutes and landed like zero strikes, and he's just got like a very boring fight style up when he fights high level opponents. I haven't seen him do one thing where I'm really wowed. On the other hand, Tyson Pedro is a few years removed from a devastating knee injury. He was doing great in three in the UFC with like at 3-1, and then he had two bad losses and then suffered that knee injury. They gave him two layups with Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker to build his confidence and pad his record a bit. Then he had a close fight with Bukauskas where his cardio didn't look all that great, and he really only lost because Bukauskas was winning the last minute of every other round. Um, Other than that, he looked pretty good. Some people forget that Pedro actually has two black belts, one of which is in BJJ. If if Turkalj gives up his back at any point, he's in some serious trouble with Pedro on his back. And I honestly think that Pedro is a much better striker than Turkalj in general. So wherever this fight goes, I think Pedro is a little bit better of a fighter. Pedro is a bit older at 31, but that's not old by any means for fighting. Fighters start to decline around 35 unless you're John Jones. I'm not I'm not extremely confident in Pedro because grappling does take a lot of Pedro's cardio away. Turkalj could easily turn this into a grappling match for 15 minutes and take the decision, but Pedro is dangerous on the ground and Turkalj loses position easily. I could easily see a submission win from Pedro. My bets are 1 unit on Tyson Pedro at minus 103, and then half a unit on Pedro submission at plus 450. Next, we've got a little bit more of an interesting fight. I'm going to try to keep this one short and sweet, though. Toph has some serious power and some experience at a higher level. Toph is 29 and still developing as a fighter. His family's been fighting for generations. All of his wins come by knockout. Lane is a much better athlete overall and has the height and reach advantage, but I've never seen him actually use his range technically. He's aggressive and pushes into his opponents far too much. If he closes the distance with Tafa, he is going to be in trouble. The way he wins is to get this fight to the ground, and Tafa has yet to be taken down. I truly think Lane poked Tafa in the eye on purpose. I think he was scared to actually feel his power. Lane might have athleticism on his side, but all of his losses come by KO. I think Lane gets caught with a big punch at some point in this fight and gets slept, and the UFC arena will erupt. I think the Australians are going to freak out during this fight. Probably all the fights, but yeah, I'm not really betting on this fight. It's I don't really like the firefight aspect of it. Uh, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I'm not super confident on top. I think I did actually put a couple units on him, um, but yeah, we'll see. I mean I think Toffa wins, but I'm not so confident in it that I would tell y'all to bet on him. I can lose my own money, but yeah, telling somebody else to bet on him, I can't do it in great conscience. All right. So, but I do think I did put some money like round by round or like for a KO. So I mean, Toffa's plus money for a KO in the first round and even higher in the second round. So he's one plus 130 in the first round, plus 450 in the second round, and plus 1400 in the third round. So any one of those KOs could make you some serious money. Like I mean, if they somehow make it to the third round, Toffa KOs him like 1400, that's insane, dude. Like that's some serious like bread if you actually like think it gets there. Which I mean, I don't know. I see it in the realm of possibilities. It's a relatively low percentage. I think Taffa wins in first or second round, but could happen, man. I mean, Taffa has gone the distance with some people and thrown some serious bombs in round three. All right, next we got Manel Cop versus Felipe Dos Santos. I forgot to put his name on the graphic, but it's all good. This is probably one of the easiest fights for me to break down on the card, and I won't spend way too much time on it. Cobb's in his prime, and he's ranked number 7 in the world. Felipe's great. He's undefeated on the regional scene, but he's fought nowhere near the caliber of fighters that Kopp is. He's only 22 years old, and it's definitely an unfair first fight for him. I think Kopp is probably one of the safest bets on the card, if not the safest. Odds should be even further apart, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, young guy going in UFC, like I mean, he's got a puncher's chance. Like, or I mean, he could hit a crazy sub, but Cobb's just too composed. I mean, going into your first UFC fight, you're gonna have some nervousness. You're probably not gonna perform well. I mean, Cobb, yeah, I think Cobb's the safest one, man. I really do. I think he's the safest one on this card, even above Adesanya. So I do have a 4 unit parlay with Cop and Malarkey. So that'll be my like quote unquote safety parlay this week. I got it minus 136 between the two of them. So I put 4 units and my units are 25 each. So I put $100 on that. So if I win, I will get $173 back. Moving on, we got Tai Tuivasa and Alexander. Why am I saying Alexander? Alexander Volkov. I think it might even be Alexander. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. Both are really talented, really heavy strikers. Volkov is getting pretty old at 34, but I don't think we've seen him in like seriously decline yet. His last two wins were very quick. Before that, he lost to Aspinall, which is understandable. Tom Aspinall is kind of like a monster. And then his only other losses in the UFC came from Gon, Curtis Blades, and then a freak last second KO by Derek Lewis, all of whom are extremely talented fighters. Derek Lewis, I don't know if I would call him talented, but it was a freak last second punch that like knocked him out. He was winning the entire fight. Um, Pretty cool to watch, like a comeback win from like that, but it sucks for Volkov to have that loss on his record when he could have easily just, I don't know, bided his time better and gotten that dub. Anyway, Ty has only lost to high caliber guys as well, but his wins just weren't as impressive or against super high quality opponents. I think Volkov takes this fight. He's much more technical and rangy than Ty. It would be one thing if Ty was an excellent grappler, but he's not. I mean, Volkov seems like his weakness is grappling, but I think that Volkov overwhelms him with volume and hurts Ty bad enough to get the finish at some point in this fight. My bet for this fight is the fight does not go the distance at minus 325. I mean, I like that line way better as a parlay piece than what a lot of people are doing. I mean, a lot of people are putting Adesanya or Ulberg in their parlays, and I mean, you're just not getting much back from that. And I think the likelihood, I mean, like, sure, it's a small likelihood that Sean Strickland wins. I'd probably give him like 8%, 9%, but at the same time, like I think that the fight doesn't go to distance for this is probably like a 97%. I don't know. At least in my brain, like these guys are gonna want to come in and fight like crazy. Like I mean, Tai Tuivasa is trying to show off for his people. Volkov, I mean, he's dangerous. They they all have a lot of knockouts between the two of them. Someone's getting knocked out in this fight. If not, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I did put Volkov in a small parlay with Malarkey as well. I mean, I'm pretty confident in Volkov to win this. Yeah. So moving on to the main event, got Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. This fight's kind of lame because Sean's the only one with enough balls to travel to Australia and fight Adesanya on short notice. The UFC really should have planned this one better, if you ask me. Um, to ask Dricus Duplessis to travel around the world and go fight Adesanya and like on 9 weeks notice is a bit much to ask, and I think he did the right thing by refusing the fight. He would be setting himself up for failure, just like Sean did. I mean, Sean's like really setting himself up for failure here. I love Sean. I hope he wins, but I hate Adesanya. The dude, I mean, he's just a professional victim. I mean, he claims he grew up poor. Uh, he claims like he's like sick. He's got like these sickness and health issues when it's really just like gyno that he's dealing with. It's weird, man. Like I don't see how you can be such a badass like fighter and just have such a crazy victim mentality. Then at the same time, I mean, he trains with Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm yeah, I hate Zuckerberg, dude. I mean, he's like basically a communist. I don't want to get into politics way too much, but like, yeah, that's I don't like Adesanya. I hope he loses, man. I really do. But the sad reality is that Adesanya will probably win the fight and get the finish. Sean's just too hard headed to actually wrestle, and he'll end up getting knocked out, in my opinion. Sean's a great boxer, but not so amazing that not so amazing at kickboxing. So Adesanya will use his range, rack up volume, and score some points. He won't chase the knockout, but it will probably come to him. I mean, Sean's just aggressive and leaves his hands down. I just think I see a KO by Adesanya at some point late, maybe round 3, maybe round 4. For that reason, I have 1.5 units on the under for 4.5 rounds at minus 110. I thought that's like a steal. Like I don't know why it's minus 110. I mean, people really expect like Sean Strickland. I like. What I see one of them getting KO'd. I mean, I, I don't know. I hope it's Israel, but whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not really doing much other than betting that line under 4.5. I did, yeah, I did throw some money on like a first round KO by Sean Strickland as a joke because like the odds were crazy, and then I did sprinkle a little bit of money on submissions at each round for Adesanya because the odds were crazy. I mean, like for a submission for like rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like rounds 1 through 5, if you do each round, they're over like plus 1,000 on each of them. So yeah, I mean, there's some money to be had there. I like So I put like maybe $5 on each one of those just to see if like if it'll cash or return anything. It's just kind of like a fun little bet. But yeah, that's my breakdown for this card. This card sucks. Like I don't know. After last week, like I had so much dopamine after like winning all that money. Like I mean, I it just like screwed me up, man. Like I was like so hyped that like, and now like after looking at these fights, like I'm not as confident in my bets. I did so much research this week. Like I really did. Like I did over 50 hours of tape study on the last weekend's card, and I probably did at least like 35 hours on this card. Probably more than that. I probably did 40. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, like I'm like I've set the bar so high that it's kind of just like disappointing thinking about not having such a great week as last week. But I'm gonna stay confident in my picks. Like I think I'd had some really good picks in here. Pick and choose what you want. I'm not a financial advisor by any means. My advice would be not to gamble at all. But here we are. Um, and yeah, I had one more thing to say. Uh, Damn. Oh, yeah. So I did throw in some crazy parlays because last week, like my parlays hit. I hit like a 9 leg parlay, a 7 leg parlay, 6 leg parlay, 5 leg parlay. Pretty much all my parlays hit because I was like 11 for 12 on my picks. So I did a lot of parlays with pretty much all favorites. Like, and then I put a couple of the underdogs in, um, like plug and play, like just on the fights that I wasn't so sure about. So I've got like some long parlays with Pedro in one, and then Turkalj in the other, and then I got some long parlays with like Chepe and Jack Jenkins, like, and then yeah, just the ones I wasn't like super sure about. I kind of mixed in like some almost like insurance parlays because I think the majority of my picks are gonna be right. Like I think pretty much all favorites win, but there's got to be one upset, right? Like, gotta be. I mean, last week the only upset was Nora. Yeah, and she was barely even like she was even like a favorite for a little bit, or a pick 'em. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully all the favorites win. Chalky week again. That would be great. Hopefully my under bets hit. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. This one was much better and shorter, and yeah, like I feel a little bit more comfortable talking. Let me know if there's anything I can do better. Please like, subscribe, comment. Um, yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoy this shit. I thank you guys for watching.